Welcome to the echoes of war and battles, history you missed. Today, we unveil the untold story of the rise of the Ottoman Empire, a journey from a small tribal beylik to a power that forever reshaped the world. This is not just history. This is the clash of civilizations, the roar of armies, the fall of empires. Stay with us, as we open the ancient scrolls and reveal how this chapter shaped the course of history forever. Episode 1. Anatolia in Turmoil. The world that breeds an emirate. In the 13th century, Anatolia was a mosaic of ruined cities, frontier lords and refugee tribes. The great Seljuk Sultanate, once the region's anchor, lay weakened after the crushing defeat at Kozdag in 1243, and the Mongol shadow stretched west. Small Turkic principalities, the beyliks, sprouted from the chaos, warlords, Ghazi warriors and displaced clans carving fortunes from Byzantine borderlands. Among these fragments, a small Kayi clan under Ertugrul took root along the marches of Bithynia. His son, Osman, would inherit not just a people but an opportunity, a thin line of defenses, fractured Byzantine towns, and a frontier society hardened by raids and alliances. Out of this instability, a new polity began, not overnight, but by patient pressure, marriage, raiding and the slow work of governance. This is the soil from which the Ottomans would grow. Episode 2. Osman's raids, from beylik to power, founding myths and hard hoof work. Osman, the clan's new leader, did not inherit borders, he made them. His method was the Ghazi raid, lightning strikes on weak fortresses, targeting supply lines, seizing tax farms, and recruiting soldiers by promise of plunder and land. The chronicled story of Osman's dream, a tree growing from his navel and sheltering the world, became the founding myth, repeated to unite men and justify conquests. Behind the myth, Osman's reality was practical, alliances with neighboring beyliks, taking Byzantine garrisons by surprise, and using marriage and diplomacy when it suited him. By the turn of the 14th century, his band had become a state apparatus in embryo, armed retainers, local tax collectors, and a growing reputation as a power that could not be ignored. Episode 3. Orhan and the making of a capital, Bursa and bureaucracy. When Orhan, Osman's son, turned from raiding to rulership, he transformed raids into governance. The capture of Bursa, c. 1326, was a turning point. For the first time the polity claimed a true urban center. Bursa became a seat for minting coins, issuing certificates and building mosques and caravanserai. Orhan's rulers set the pattern of Ottoman rule, a blend of Turkish and Persianate administrative models, pragmatic tolerance toward local populations, and the beginnings of a regularized military and financial system. The transition from a frontier band to a territorial state required more than victories. It demanded taxes, markets, and legitimacy, all of which Orhan pursued deliberately. Episode 4. Across the Dardanelles, Gallipoli and early Europe steppes, the sea changed everything. A catastrophic earthquake and the shifting politics of the 1350s allowed Ottoman captains to seize Gallipoli, the gateway across the Dardanelles. Suddenly the Ottomans had a permanent foothold in Europe, a base from which to supply raids and press Balkan ambitions. From this bridgehead, second-generation commanders sent raiding parties deep into Thrace and Macedonia. The Ottoman frontier began to push through the Balkans not as isolated raids but as a sustained movement. Towns were besieged, local lords forced into vassalage, and the route to the Danube opened. Episode 5. Maritsa and the Balkan Gate, 1371 collapse of Serbian resistance. In 1371 the Battle of Maritsa shattered the defense of the southern Balkans. Disunited Serbian magnates faced a coordinated Ottoman strike and were routed. The result was not immediate empire but a vacuum. Nobles died, power fractured, and many surviving lords accepted Ottoman suzerainty to keep their places. The Ottomans preferred to govern through vassals where convenient. This pragmatic flexibility made further expansion easier and less costly, as tribute and local troops supplemented direct garrisons. Episode 6. Murad I, the Timar system, and Kosovo, 1389. Murad I turned conquest into governance. He is credited with shaping early Timar, land for service, allotments, binding cavalry to the state through land grants, and building a durable fiscal military system. His reign extended Ottoman control across Thrace and into the heart of Serbia. At Kosovo in 1389, Christian and Ottoman forces clashed in a battle that became a foundation myth for both sides. Murad's consolidation of power after Kosovo accelerated Ottoman administrative reach. Yet the cost was high, the battlefield was brutal, leaders were cut down, and later retellings would mythologize heroes and villains for centuries. Bayezid I Yildirim, Thunderbolt and Centralization. Bayezid I, the Thunderbolt, earned his name through blistering speed and relentless campaigning. He pressed the state's advantage, bringing more rulers under his authority and attempting to centralize power around the Sultanate. Bayezid's style was direct, tight sieges, swift marches, and displays of authority designed to cow rivals. His victories from Anatolia to the Balkans made him the most feared sovereign in the region, yet centralization bred enemies, and his rapid expansion would soon face an even greater test. Nicopolis, 1396. The Crusaders' last great hope. Indiana, 1396. A European coalition launched a crusade to check Ottoman power at Nicopolis. Knights and nobles, confident and chivalric, met an Ottoman army disciplined in skirmish and horse-archer tactics. The result was catastrophic for the Crusaders. An overconfident charge became a slaughter in terrain that favored Ottoman maneuver warfare. Nicopolis crushed one of the last large-scale medieval hopes of rolling back Ottoman expansion, and it sent a chilling message across Europe. The Ottomans were not a temporary frontier threat, they were a military reality demanding new strategies. Timur and the catastrophe at Ankara, 1402. The empire's expansion was dramatic and vulnerable. Timur, the Turco-Mongol conqueror from the east, arrived in Anatolia with a ferocious, seasoned force. At Ankara in 1402, Bayezid's army, stretched and exhausted by years of campaigning, faced Timur's veteran troops. Bayezid was routed and taken captive, the Ottoman polity fractured. The result was not foreign conquest but internecine collapse. Bayezid's sons divided the realm, each carving out power in an Ottoman interregnum that would last a decade. The setback humiliated the Sultanate and forced a rethinking. Raw conquest without resilient institutions could be undone. The interregnum and Mehmed I's reunification, 1402 to 1413. The decade after Ankara was the theater of brothers. Suleiman, Isa, Musa and Mehmed each claimed the Sultan's mantle. Anatolia and the Balkans split between rival courts, the economy strained, and local magnates tested the limits of Ottoman rule. It was Mehmed I who, through patient campaigns and shrewd alliances, stitched the pieces back together by 1413. His victory did not restore the old pace of expansion immediately, but it brought back a key lesson. The survival of the Ottoman enterprise depended as much on internal cohesion as on battlefield triumph. Episode 11, Murad II, Recovery, the Danube and New Crusades, the Build Back. By the early 15th century the Ottomans were back on the offensive. Murad II restored pressure toward the Danube, confronting Hungarian and Wallachian powers and facing intermittent crusading armies. He balanced siegecraft with diplomacy, and his reign saw the maturation of Ottoman military institutions that allowed deeper penetration of the Balkans. Murad's reign also set up the generational handoff that would produce Mehmed II, a ruler trained to think bigger than frontier raids, to think of cities, walls and empires. Episode 12, Mehmed II and the Conquest of Constantinople, 1453. The Turning Point. Mehmed II arrived with an audacious plan, to make a capital of his own on the Bosporus. He prepared for years, stockpiling men, metal and engineers. A Hungarian cannon maker named Orhan built monstrous bombards that battered the ancient walls. A small fleet guarded the sea while a famous gambit hauled ships overland to bypass the chain in the Golden Horn. The siege was a study in logistics, technology, and determination. The city's defenders, led by Emperor Constantine XI, held with desperation but were outnumbered and outgunned. On the morning of May 29, 1453, after weeks of bombardment, sorties and probing assaults, the Ottomans mounted a final, coordinated attack. Walls were breached. Gates fell, and Constantinople, the great Roman city, was taken. The conquest did not just crown a sultan, it rewired commerce, religion and politics across Eurasia. For Mehmed it was both pragmatic victory and symbolic coronation as the new master of a world straddling two continents. History is not just the story of kings and empires, it's the story of ambition, of blood, of dreams that changed the world. The rise of the Ottoman Empire was only the beginning. The fall of Constantinople would shatter the medieval world and forge a new one. Thank you for watching this episode of the Echoes of War and Battles, History You Missed. If you enjoyed this journey through forgotten history, please like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget, hit that bell icon, because in our next chapter, we'll step inside the gates of a conquered city, watch as the Ottomans rebuild, and see how new enemies rose to challenge their empire. You won't want to miss it. Stay with us as the history scrolls unfold.